Shabbat Shalom. So imagine it is that you are walking down the street. It's a public street, it's a pretty open area, you don't see anyone nearby. And lo and behold, there, just blowing across your feet, is a $20 bill. You pick it up. You look at it. How many of you say, I'm going to the store and buying myself a cup of coffee or lunch? How many of you just put it in your pocket and keep walking? How many of you walk by? How many of you say, I'll give it to tzedakah when I get home? All right, I see a lot of people who didn't raise their hands. What else are you going to do with it? Try to find who lost it? Yes? True story. 2018. California man is walking along the street, finds a $20 bill on the ground. I'm sure in his head he goes through the same questions. Should I go buy myself lunch? Should I go give it to charity? Should I just put it in my pocket and hold on to it for a rainy day? Well, apparently this man had not purchased lottery tickets for a long time. So he had the idea, I haven't purchased lottery tickets in 10 years. Let me go try my luck. And sure enough, he goes to the store and he buys a lottery ticket. And he wins $1 million. Not bad for a $20 investment. Did he owe any of that $1 million to charity? When asked what he was going to do with the $1 million, he simply said, I'm going to put it in my savings account. I'll tell you an interesting statistic I just came across. You'll hear it again on Rosh Hashanah, so pretend like you didn't hear it this time. But I was so floored by it, I'm going to say it everywhere I go. Did you know that about 20 years ago, 2/3 of American households gave to tzedakah, gave to charity? 2/3. 5 years ago, when they did a similar study, less than 50%. Less than 50% of American households gave to charity. We are in an interesting and difficult time in which people aren't giving of themselves in the same way. And with that, I want to invite you to turn with me to Parashat Teitzei. We're in the Teitzei Chumashim, this week's Torah portion, Teitzei. We're in Deuteronomy, and of course, Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses is speaking to our ancestors before he sends them into Eretz Yisrael, into the land of Israel without him. Moses, like the parent speaking to the child, saying, when you go off on your own, here is the society based on justice and righteousness that I want you to build. This is what it means to live with justice and with righteousness. And here I am once again on page 1115 in our Teitzei Chumashim, Deuteronomy chapter 2. Moses says, the Torah teaches, if you see your fellow's ox or sheep gone astray, do not ignore it. You must take it back to your fellow. I feel pretty confident in saying no one here this morning violated this mitzvah. We're doing pretty good. If your fellow does not live near you, or you do not know who he is, you shall bring it home, and it shall remain with you until your fellow claims it. Then you shall give it back to him. You shall do the same with his ass, you shall do the same with his garment, and so too shall you do with anything that your fellow loses, and you must find. You must not remain indifferent, the Torah tells us. Lo tuchal lehitalem. It's a beautiful 3 words about which I've spoken before here. Maybe the most important 3 words in the entire Torah. You shall not remain indifferent. Or a more direct translation of the Hebrew is actually, you shall not disappear yourself from your responsibilities. You have an obligation to act. You must not remain indifferent. Now, based on these verses in the Torah and the obligation to do our very best to return that which has been lost to the person who lost it, Our rabbis in the Talmud create a whole set of laws on how we know what to return, on when we can return, on how we can return, and what we can actually keep. By the way, interestingly enough, the rabbis would say that $20 that the guy found on the street, totally his to do with as he pleases. Totally fine. Because there's no way to know to whom that $20 originally belonged. There are no markings on it that indicate it as belonging to a specific person. Therefore, it is open and out in the air. Anyone can take it and use it. But nevertheless, we see from our Torah that there is a distinct obligation to return that which has been lost. And interestingly enough, Rabbeinu Bachia, a 13th century medieval Torah commentator, he comes to teach that within these verses, we actually see the origin of God promising bodily resurrection to the Jewish people. How about that? Because our souls have become separated from our bodies, we see the mitzvah of returning lost objects. Therefore, in the time to come, when Mashiach, when Messiah arrives, God will restore souls to our bodies, and there'll be bodily resurrection. Shabbat Shalom. No, I'm not kidding. That's where we... So what do we do with this idea of returning lost objects? Very rarely are we going to come across a lost ox or donkey that needs to be returned to its owners. But as we see how this mitzvah evolved in real life, what we see is that at the heart of Yerushalayim, at the center of Jerusalem, just next to the Temple Mount, was a spot called the Even HaTo'en, the stone of reclamation. And it was at this stone that people gathered. If you had found something, you brought it to the stone. If you had lost something, you came to the stone. And there at the heart of Yerushalayim, that which has been lost was returned. That which has been lost has been returned. Now, just out of curiosity, how many of you have been to Jerusalem? Been to Jerusalem? Yeah. I don't know about you, but I feel like when I go to Israel, something that I've lost has very much been returned to me. It is the stone of reclamation. And also, interestingly, a few years ago, archaeologists think that they discovered it, the actual spot with the stone as it's described in the Talmud. But what does it mean to return lost objects when we don't have oxes and we don't have donkeys, and most of us generally aren't concerned with bodily resurrection? And I wonder then if it's b'sheret that at this time of year, really just a few weeks from now, the largest number of Jews will gather in the synagogue than at any other point during the year. Now, those of us who are professional Jews always find that a little bothersome that Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are the days in which the largest number of Jews gather. It's not the most joyful. It's not the happiest. It's certainly not the shortest. And it's among the most difficult and complicated liturgy and theology that we offer throughout the year. Yet those are the days when Jews gather the most. Could it be that at Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur each and every year, the synagogue, this synagogue, becomes the Even HaTo'en, becomes the seat of the stone of reclamation? Because we know at the very heart of the mission of synagogue is Beit Knesset, a house of gathering. This is where we come when we've lost something, and this is where we've come when we've found something. There are some people who are here today because they are in mourning. They've lost a loved one. And what do they find? They find the joy of the Ashkenazi family. That joy, in some ways, becomes returned to them. Some people come to the synagogue because they've lost hope. And God knows if you read the newspaper, it's becoming easier and easier to lose hope. So what do we offer here at the synagogue? What ought we to offer here at the synagogue? This should be a place of hope. This should be a place where we say, though it is difficult now, we Jews know from difficult. We've overcome that. Things will get better. This is a place where the lost can find what they've lost, and those who've found can share what they've found. At this time of year especially, if you are a person of hope, we need you to come to the synagogue and share your hope with others. If you are a person of kindness, we need you to come to the synagogue and share your kindness with others. If you are a person of joy, we need you to come here and share the joy that you've found with others. If you're a person of music, we need you to come and share your music with others. And if you're a person who has Torah in his or her heart, our rabbis actually come to tell us that a teacher of Torah isn't providing anything new to his or her students. They're just reminding the students of what they lost many years ago when they were born into this world, and the angel touched their lips right here. Because what do we do when we're waiting to be born? We're studying in the heavenly Beit Midrash. We're studying in the heavenly yeshiva, learning everything we need to know. But just before we're born, an angel takes its fingers, touches us right here. That's why you have that indentation, that groove in your upper lip. That's the mark of the angel. And our job is to spend the rest of our lives reclaiming the Torah that we've lost. And we do that here at the synagogue. But if you're someone who's in need of kindness, if you're someone who's in need of hope, if you're someone who's in need of joy or of music, if you're someone who's in need of Torah to help bring meaning to this crazy world in which we live, come to shul. Come to this synagogue so that you can find it too. This Shabbat of Parashat Teitzei, all of us are commanded that when we've lost something, we have to seek where it might be found. And if we've found something, we have to offer it to those who seek. I'm reminded of the story of Abraham and Sarah, a wonderful old couple. They'd been married 65 years when they were invited to come to their high school reunion. We know from high school reunions. And sure enough, Abraham and Sarah go to the high school reunion. They enter the school, and there, hand in hand all evening, they walk around the school in which they attended and became lovebirds at first. And there, walking around hand in hand, they actually discovered the desk in which it was carved, "Abraham loves Sarah." It was a beautiful evening. On their way home, Abraham and Sarah see a bag of money lying on the street. They pick up the bag of money. And Abraham says to Sarah, "Sarah, what should we do with this bag of money?" And Sarah says, "Abraham, you fool, we take it home." And sure enough, they took it home, and they counted it when they got home. $50,000 in that bag of money. Abraham says, "Sarah, I don't feel comfortable with this. I think we should return this bag of money." Sarah says, "Abraham, you fool, we're keeping the money." And sure enough, they put it upstairs and hide it in the back of their closet. Abraham's uncomfortable. Sarah is entirely confident in what she wants to do. The next morning, the police show up at Abraham and Sarah's house. They knock on the door. Abraham and Sarah let the police in, and the police explain, "We're looking for this bag of money. It's a bag of about $50,000. It was lost yesterday. Did you find it?" Sarah says, "No. Absolutely no. We found nothing. We know not what you're talking about." Abraham looks at his wife of 65 years, and he says, "Sarah, I can't do this. I can't do it. We have to tell the police about the money. Police, we found the bag of money, and we took it home, and we have the $50,000. Well, now the police are baffled because Sarah said one thing and Abraham said something else. So the police say, "We have an idea," and they separate Abraham and Sarah. And they sit down with Abraham, and they say, "Abraham, you say you found the $50,000. Tell us your story. How exactly did this happen?" And Abraham starts off. He says, "Well, We were walking home from school yesterday, and the police said, "Yes, sir, we've heard enough. We'll be on our way. Have a good day." We have an obligation to return that which was lost. We have an obligation to bring joy and hope and kindness to this world. We have an obligation to bring music and Torah to this world, especially in the next several weeks and in the next month. I hope you'll join me in these sacred efforts. Shabbat Shalom.